Hello everyone, welcome to my latest developer commentary video. This is a new game that I've developed called Ichiban Sokoban. I developed this game over the last week for the Mini Ludum Dare 67. So the theme was to develop a game, a classic style game, and update it with the latest graphics and technology. So one of the options was Sokoban, which is a game that I actually implemented years ago in Java. So I thought it would be interesting to go back and implement Sokoban in Unity. So I took the approach where I got the base game working in a board class where I could just move it around and text and everything, and you can actually still see the text representation of the game in the upper right corner. But I took that, so I created a view using Unity game objects. So basically, the Unity game world just pulls in the information from that view and updates the display. So it makes it feel really solid in the gameplay. So you'll notice I actually did all the graphics again, this time in Blender. I went through and I did a model in Blender of this robot person, and I actually rigged the robot using Rigify, and also did the little boxes here in Blender, just the simple boxes, and the walls as well. So the objective of this game is basically Sokoban. You push the boxes around until you place all of the boxes in the goal areas. So the goal areas are represented by these glowing green cube. So once you push the box into the cube, then the cube kind of overlays the box, so it kind of looks like that's getting sucked into the box right there. I've applied lighting effects for the character, so you see like a little spotlight on top of the character, and as your character moves around the map, you can see the number of moves increasing. So you try to beat the game with the fewest moves possible. I'll also mention that I got all of the levels off a Sokoban website where people create these Sokoban maps in text format. So I just created a text asset and then imported that into the resources. So I wrote a parser to read those level formats, and then it generates the level. So basically, you can take any Sokoban data file in the text format and generate the levels. I still haven't wrote an importer. It will parse it, but you can't just specify any game level on the command line. But that's something I'm hoping to do, so players can load in their own game levels from a text file. Also, if you get stuck in one of the levels, you can press the R key, so that basically just goes through and resets all the game objects in the Sokoban level. On the title screen earlier, I actually did all of the text in Blender. So I did just a standard font object, and I used the bevel modifiers that are included in Blender for a font to make it look like it's 3D and gives it a little bit of a bevel edge and extrude it out a little bit. So that just zooms in toward the screen. And then also I used a Japanese font, and I typed in the words Ichiban Sokoban in Japanese kanji, and then imported those into Blender. So you can notice on the title screen those kanji spinning above and below the English translation. I actually did all the music in GarageBand on the Mac again, and I'm happy with what I was able to create in GarageBand this time. I went for a little bit more of an electronic theme this time, and you can download the entire soundtrack on my SoundCloud website. I actually did all of the sound effects in GarageBand as well. So in past games, I've generated the sound using BFXR, and that's great for classic retro type games, but for a modern type game, I like generating the sound effects in GarageBand as well. The one thing that does need to be improved is the level select screen, so I'm hoping I'll be able to go back and work on that a little bit more. Right now, you can press the up and down arrows to go through all of the selectable levels and select any level you want, but it only displays it in the text format. So it'd be nice if I could make that screen look a little bit better and more presentable. So as I mentioned earlier, I used the Rigify add-on in Blender to animate this guy. So what Rigify does, it gives you a skeleton armature, and you just try to match up that skeleton armature with the robot body. And I also went in and did some inverse kinematics, so when I moved the robot's foot, then the rest of his leg moves appropriately. You don't get that by default with Rigify. But I created 3 animations. The first is just him there standing, chilling out. Then I made one of him moving, so he pushes whenever he's moving. And then he's got a victory pose where he raises his arms up. Yay, I won. Like that. I also texture mapped the robot in Blender. It's very simple texture mapping that I did. A quick way to do texture mapping is to do the project from view. I go in and I select like the entire mesh, project from view on the front side, then I spin them around to the back side, make sure that the shading is turned on and everything, so you don't select everything, just select the back side, and then project from view again and pull that over, so you just get a image of the front side and image from the back side as your layout. Then I export that layout into a PNG file, which I pull into GIMP, and I create a new layer that I put on top of that, or put below that, and then I do the drawing on the front side and the back side. So it's a really quick and easy way to do texture mapping. Then I hide the actual layout in GIMP. Then I just export my drawing for the texture map, and then I apply that in Blender and then save, and then that automatically gets pulled into Unity, so your character looks like he's texture mapped. So you can see some of the artifacts around the top of the arm. So that's some things I could go back and touch up, but yeah, I just made it so like around his wrist it's red, and around his bottom of its torso is red, and then around his lower legs, those are red. Then I got like a red triangle around the face, and then I got like a symbol on his chest that's also in red. There are some more things I would like to add to this game. I would like to add a timer so you can try to beat your best time, and also to actually have like a leaderboard where you can upload your best scores and try to compete against other people to solve these levels in the best possible time. So yeah, if you're into Sokoban games, I definitely recommend checking this out. I'll try to keep applying updates. I also want to release it on multiple platforms. Currently I have it on itch.io as a Windows executable, but very soon I'll also post it on GameJolt, and I'm going to try to put it on the Windows Store to see if that will work. I know I've had an issue in the past publishing games on the Windows Store using Unity with the Playmaker add-on before the Playmaker add-on wasn't compatible with the builder for the Windows 10 store. So I'm going to try that again and see if that'll work with the latest version. I believe it's 1.8 of Playmaker. I think it now supports the Windows Store. One other technique that I used in this game is I played around with the lighting a little bit. And if you weren't aware, like me, by default, Unity gives you a little bit of ambient lighting. You got to go under the window menu, and there's a lighting section, and under there, and you can turn that all the way down. So, and that will make the level completely black by default. Then you can control the lighting yourself by your directional light and then your point lights on all of your different objects. One other thing that I'll also mention, there are no colliders in this game, and that's kind of like counterintuitive to most Unity games. Usually you'd put a collider on the box and you put a collider on your player, and player pushes the box. But that really doesn't work really well for a puzzle game, because in a puzzle game, you got to make sure that everything is locked into your board array. So pushing a box, then it's not going to actually fit into one of those slots in the array perfectly. So that's why I did the textual representation of the game first, and everything in the Unity game world just resolves itself to the game board object. So the game board gets updated with like a new box position and a new player position. So the player will be in the old position. So then once the board changes, then the player gets pulled into the new position. So it still looks really sharp. The one issue that I had was I was storing all of the boxes as just primitive values in an array with no ID or anything like that. But there was a problem when the board gets updated. I wouldn't know which box is getting moved to which position, so I had to redo the an array just for the boxes with int values. So each box actually has an ID. So whenever the board gets updated, then each box by its ID, it checks on its new position. So if the box gets moved in the board array, then it just moves to that new position if that position has a box ID matching its ID. And I do all that through Playmaker. I set an ID in an FSM for the box, and then I just access that. Access the value in the board array using a script. You can use the class method on Playmaker FSM, then get the FSM on a game object. And then once you have that FSM object, you can use many different functions or methods on that object. You can use like get FSM int, get FSM string. They have like a method for each of the different data types, and then you just pass in the name of that variable that you defined in the FSM. So that's a really neat way, and I've been using that a lot to be able to get in my script an FSM variable that's defined in my graphical Playmaker interface. And then after that, you just use .value if you want to get or set that value that's returned from that function. Yeah, so that's about it for Ichiban Sokoban, the Sokoban game that I developed. I recommend everybody going out and checking it out. Thanks everyone for watching.